Hey guys, welcome to the next episode of my Tabletop Simulator video series. And in this episode, I'm going to show you guys how to collaborate online and how to play and make games together. Now to do that, I'm going to need a collaborator. So I figured I'd bring in a guest lecturer, my wonderful partner, Chloe. How you doing, Chloe?
Just peachy.
All right, wonderful. So let's start with the basics and let's get everybody on Steam. So Chloe has obviously been on my Steam account for a while now, so you can see her here. But to get anybody there, you can just click on this button and that'll give you the Add Friend interface. You'll find that you'll get a friend code and you'll get a quick invite that you can share with the other students in your group so you can find each other online on Steam. Or if you know their profile names, you can just type it here. Now, 17463510 is my friend code, and you're more than welcome to add me to your Steam account. That will make it easier for me to find you and get into a room with you on Tabletop Simulator in case anything goes wrong and you need some help. So you're welcome to add me as well. Going back to the friend list, once your friend accepts your invite, they should be in here and you can double click their name to start talking to them. So that's the last thing that I had with Chloe going on, a picture of a duck. So, if I type here, hi Chloe, she can type back to me. Now, obviously, while you're in game, you're not just going to use the text chat interface. So you can just use this button here to send a voice request. And then you can talk to each other over voice chat once you accept this. So I'm going to shut that down here because that will mess with our recording, but you get the idea. Also, in the friend window, you can make group chats, which is going to be really convenient if you have to add more people, which I'm sure you're going to have to do for the assignments for the class that you're in with me. All right, so let's have a look at how you create a room and get people into the room. So you click on create to create the room, then on multiplayer, and Tabletop Simulator actually doesn't call it rooms, it calls it servers, but it's the same principle. It's an environment in which you can interact with each other. So you have to write down a server name. I went with loading because I think that's funny. Then the server type can be public, friends, or invite. Public means that anybody can join, friends only the people that you've added as friends, and invite only specific friends that you invite to the room. For now, we're going to do invite, but I'll show you the other two in a bit. If you choose invite, a server password is not necessary. And then you can set max players anywhere between 10 to 2. Since it's just me and Chloe, I'm just going to put it at 2. So we'll create the server. And basically, you're good to go now. You could just invite anyone by just closing this and starting to work inside of this room. But for this example, I'm going to load the game Hive, which is a fun 2-player game. You should totally try it out. It's really good. And I'm going to invite Chloe to this game of Hive with me. So to do that, I just click on the plus symbol here. And then I just click on Chloe, who happens to be online, and invite her. So Chloe can now find the invite and join us in the room. So one thing you'll notice is once people start Tabletop Simulator, in your lower right corner, it will actually pop up that they have started the application. So that's helpful to see where people are at, I guess. Then eventually you'll see them pop up in the room like here, and you'll see that there's a number next to their name, and it's the ping to the player. In this case, it's 16, which is a very low number, which is very good. If that number gets higher, you might end up with lag or connectivity issues, so you want low numbers. If for any reason in class you find that you're in a group with students that have very high numbers, like over 500 consistently, you might want to tell the instructor about that so that they can get reassigned to another group where people might have a lower ping number, because it will make things harder to do online if that number gets really high. Chloe and I, however, are on the same network right now, so our number is really low. Chloe, what are you having?
It's somewhere between like 8 to 21.
Yeah, I got a 15 for her. So if it's below 200, you're absolutely fine. Anyways, so yeah, we're in the same room right now, and you can see that Chloe's name is here, and on Chloe's screen, my name will be on the other side. And Chloe's hand is in the room as well. Maybe she could move it around a little bit so we can find it. Yep, she's in the middle of the room, like a little bee buzzing around, in line with the Hive theme. So if we want to play Hive, I'm not going to explain the game, but we could start moving these pieces around. So let's say I do the first turn, and I put a spider on the table, and then Chloe follows up with a beetle. And just for the sake of showing you guys, I'm putting down an ant now, and Chloe is following up with a mosquito. And then finally, I'll just put a queen, but we're not going to play an actual game because that will take a little bit too long. But we can both move our pieces around now and we can play the game. Now say we're bored with this game, we can just go to games and we can load something else. Like say, let's see, what's another good game to load here? Let's say we want to load a game of Rising Sun. So I'm going to load that. And this is a bigger game, so you're going to see that there's a little bit of a loading time there. So yeah, the room always does this little spinning thing. And you can also see that, well, it went really quickly, but next to our names, you can see how far people have been loading, which is really nice to keep track of when people are actually in the room and when they're not. Again, you'll see that Chloe's name is here. If you want to go sit somewhere else, you just click on your name, you change your color, and you'll get this interface. If you want to work on a game, you might want to go black, because then you're the game master, which means you can do everything. And right now, Chloe can't really do much in the room. She can move objects around, but she can't make any new objects. So a good thing to do is also to promote everybody if you're the host, if you're going to work on a game. Now, if you're going to play a game, there's no point in doing that. But if you're actually going to make a game, you want to promote everybody so they can bring in assets of their own and so forth. So that's pretty much the basics of getting everybody in a room using the invite system. I'm quickly going to show you how the other two methods work. So I'm going to go back to the main room, and Chloe is going to get kicked out of the room when I do that because I am the host. So I'm going to create a new server, and this time I'm going to use the public server type. So first you need to know what the name is, so it's still going to be loading. And as a server password, I'm going to put down Reggie, which is the name of our dog. Now, you can also run it without a password, but if you do so, the room is going to be completely public, so anybody can join. And with that, well, anybody can join, so be careful when doing that. I wouldn't recommend it. So I'm going to create the server, and then Chloe is going to explain how she gets into the room.
Yep, so I'm just going to click the join button. You see loading right at the top there. Click on that, type in Reggie, and there we go. I'll get there eventually.
Yeah. Now, just make sure when you guys are setting up the room, you don't type in Reggie because your host will probably have a different password. All right. Anyways, so let's get out of this room again. And for the final method, I'm going to create the room and I'm going to set it to friends and create the server. And yeah, Chloe can show you how to take it from there.
Yeah, so I'm still in Tabletop Simulator. So in order to get to the Steam interface, I'll press Shift Tab. And then you see my chat window. I right click on Bob's name. And then I click on the join game button and it will put me right in the game that he's in.
All right. So yeah, and there she is. Wonderful. So with that, you now know how to get into rooms. So for the second part of the tutorial, let me show you guys how you can get started on collaborating actually. So my recommendation would be, first off, you want to set your table, because changing a table after you've already put a lot of stuff in a game can be a real hassle. So to do that, you click on Objects, and in Objects you click on Tables, and there you'll find a default list of tables, and those tables are absolutely fine as beginners. Some of them are not that useful, but are kind of cool, like this poker table. My favorite table from the default ones is the rectangle, which is the biggest table that they have. If you want to change what the surface of the table looks like, there's also the custom tables. There's a custom rectangle and a custom square, just in case you would like to use something like that. Now, you could also set the table to none. You'll just see some floating names. And you can also get custom tables through the workshop. So for doing that, you go to Games, you click on Workshop, and then you click on Browse. And in here, it takes a second to load. If you type in tables, you will find that people have made a lot of models for different table types. And you can subscribe to any of them and see if there's something there that you'd like. I'll show you two of my favorites. I think my favorite table is called the Flex table, because the Flex table can literally be a table of any size. It starts as a small square, but if you press this control panel button here, you'll open this interface and you can, for example, make the table a 2x4 table. And now we have a pretty big table. I mean, this looks like something you could actually play pool on or something if you add a couple of holes. So you can change the size of any table to whichever way you like with a Flex table, which is quite convenient. My other favorite table would be the Kraken. And the Kraken, let's see where it is in my list here, is a really cool 3D model for a fairly big table. It's a lot bigger than the rectangle. And it has these drawers that you can pull out as if it's a fancy gamer table. So the Kraken is one of the nicest tables in the game as well, and it also has some options here that you can mess with if you want to customize it and if you want to extend it even further. Like, it could really be enormous. All right, so that is how you get different tables. Now for this little demo, I'm going to go back to a default table. And to do that, I am going to have to get rid of the Kraken. Now, I have no idea how to get rid of the Kraken actually, because I thought that you could just press L to unlock it and then delete it, but that's not working for me right now. So I'm just gonna load a different room now, and we'll go from there. So next up, you probably want to bring in some assets. So to do that, you can just click on Objects, and then you can click on Components, and you can bring in all these kinds of assets. Now, right now, since I'm the host, I can bring in whatever I like. I'll just show you. Let's say I want to bring in a chess piece or something. Here we go. I'm bringing in a pawn. But Chloe has none of these options. She can't even copy paste anything right now. So to fix that, I am going to have to promote her. And once I've done that, Chloe can also bring some stuff out. So Chloe, can you bring me a deck of cards?
Yeah.
And in the meanwhile, I'll just bring some other stuff in just for the sake of demonstration. I really like these little counters that you can use, and these are the note cards that you might have seen in the previous room. There's even a digital clock that you can use. Just mess around with some of the assets. Tabletop Simulator has some really cool stuff. And with that, we pretty much have everything you need to make a game. Like, say hypothetically I want to make a game that's based on a grid. I can start using the line tool to draw some lines out. Let's say I have a little racing game here, so I'm going to have a couple of squares up, and you know, I'm going to put a pawn for player 1, a pawn for player 2. Let's say player 2's pawn has a different color, like a teal pawn because I like teal. And, you know, if I want to bring some dice so that you can roll your dice, let's say for this game we're rolling with a d4. So there you go. So now we have a little game where you can roll the dice and then you can move your pawn. Let's see, which one did I roll? I rolled a 1. So I go up 1 space. So anyways, we created a little game here. How would I go about saving this game? So to save a game, you click on Games, and then you have the Save Load interface. And you'll notice as a host, you have also an autosave there, which could be convenient. So it will automatically save for you on certain intervals. I don't know how long it is, but it might save you if you accidentally shut down or if your computer crashes. But in all other scenarios, you want to click on this button, and then you want to click on Save Game, and then you can give it a name. Let's say I'm just going to call it Test. And I very much recommend that you put versions on it, like for example, test version 1, and that you just save multiple copies of the game in case you ever have to go back to an earlier copy. So then you'll see that if I close this interface again and go to games, test v1 is now in here, and I can just load it like I would any other game. So now as the host, I have a copy of this game, and that works. However, if you're not the host, you can do the exact same thing. Like Chloe can also go into games right now, and she can also do a save and save the game on her own. So that's how you can have multiple copies across people. And what I would recommend is when you're kind of done with a game, that you all just make a copy of the game yourself, and that you just have good agreements about when people make changes to a game so that you all sync up with each other. Okay, now that might all sound a little bit overwhelming, but to help you guys get started with collaboration in Tabletop Simulator, I put together a little guide that I hope you will find helpful. So first off, you're gonna have to do some initial setup steps. So for your initial setup, I want you to go get a communication platform. It doesn't really matter which communication platform it is. I think a Steam group would be great, but you could also use a Discord server, a Slack, a Trello board, whatever you fancy. The only requirement that I have for the communication platform is that you can use it asynchronously, so you don't always have to be online at the same time. And that if you write a message on one day, somebody can find that message again on the next day. So that's the communication platform. Step 2 is I want you guys to go get an online shared folder. Again, it doesn't really matter what platform you're using for that. A Google Drive, a Dropbox are things that come to mind. But if you have something else, you're more than welcome to use that too, as long as everybody can have access to it. Third, I want you to go find the Tabletop Simulator save game folder. Now, at the time of recording this video, on a Mac, that would be in the library under Tabletop Simulator saves. On a PC, it will be in your user profile, and then it's Documents, My Games, Tabletop Simulator, and Saves. This is what that folder actually should look like if you're on PC. So as you can see on my screen now, there is a couple of files that are not really that relevant, but you'll see that there is tssafe1.json, tssafe1.png, tssafe2, and so forth. Well, on my screen it's 7, but there's a whole bunch of files, and they're the same numbers for a JSON and a PNG. Now, if you're familiar with what a JSON is, this will all make a lot of sense. But if you're not, a JSON is basically just a text file. So if I open up my JSON, you'll see that it just contains a whole bunch of text. So you could actually edit your save game on the level of the text itself. For example, if you're going to change the value here under gravity and you make it lower or higher, it will change the gravity in your game room. Anyways, that's all a little bit more detailed than it has to be maybe, but for now, all I want you to know is that a save game consists out of 2 files, a PNG, which is an image, which is just the thumbnail that you would have for whatever your save game is, and the JSON, which contains all the information of the save game. And these files are both pretty small. So whenever I refer to a save game in this video, I am referring to both the PNG and the JSON. All right, so once you've found that Tabletop Simulator save game folder, you're ready to go work on your game and collaborate as much as you like with your friends. And then when you're done with working on your game, there's a couple of steps I want you to do. First off, I want everybody to save a copy of the game when you're signing off. That way, at least you have a copy that's like it was the last time you saw it. But more importantly, I want the host to copy the last version from that Tabletop Simulator save folder to that shared folder that you have, whether it's a Dropbox or a Google Drive. The second step is the most important one, and it's a big responsibility. But I'm assuming here that the host will be the last person to see what the game state was when you were signing off. So this should ensure that whatever the last version was gets saved onto that shared folder where everybody can access it. I also recommend whenever you update the shared folder, maybe keep track of the versions that you are using. As I've been saying earlier in this video, I'm using V1, V2 every time I save. Alternatively, you could just make folders that say version 1, version 2, and so forth. I would strongly recommend to do that really, because if anything goes wrong, a save file gets corrupted or something, you can always go back to a previous version. All right, so after you're working on your mod, this will ensure that your save file is accessible to everyone. So then before you start working again on the mod, there's a couple of steps that you want to follow. First off, I want you to go on a communication platform and just check the recent messages, see if there's anything relevant there. In particular, you want to see if somebody is currently working on the mod. If they are, contact them and ask them, hey, I want to work on the mod as well. Can you let me in the room? Can you let me on the Tabletop Simulator server so that we can collaborate? If nobody is working on the mod, that's fine. You just tell everybody, hey guys, I'm going to go work on the mod right now. If anybody wants to work as well, I'll let you into my room. But if nobody does, I'm just going to do some individual work. And that's fine too. Once you've sent that message out and you're ready to get going, you go to the shared folder and you get the last version of the Tabletop Simulator save folder. This might be a slightly different version from the one you have on your computer if somebody else has been working on it. So never start working on the version that is still in Tabletop Simulator. Always check with what is on that shared folder and copy it over to your save folder before you open it in Tabletop Simulator. And then you can just continue working. So that's pretty much my guide. I'm gonna sum that up in 2 easy to remember points. So before you start working on your mod, the host always has to save the last copy to the online folder where everybody can find it. Then, when somebody continues work on the mod, they go get that last version from the online shared folder and you talk to each other so that you do not create conflicting versions. That's kind of what you're trying to avoid here. The scenario in which 2 people work for an entire night on the game and just have 2 completely different versions of the game at the end of it, because, well, that's going to be a waste of time. Now, if that were to happen, it's not the end of the world. Since JSONs are just text files, you can actually merge them, and there is software, in particular I recommend mergely.com, that you can use to merge 2 text files. But honestly, I would just recommend that you ensure that you never create conflicting versions, and then you won't have this issue. And that's pretty much it. If you're a computer science major, you might have better solutions for this. For example, you could use version control software like GitHub, Git, Perforce, SVN. There's plenty of software out there that does specifically this. But For classes in which there aren't any CSE majors around or people with experience in that kind of software, I think working with a Dropbox, a Google Drive, and a communication platform can do the job just as well, especially since you're not working on a huge project here. All right, and that's pretty much it for my collaboration guide. I hope that this will help you to get started on making games together on Tabletop Simulator, because I'm really excited about playing them. I'll see you in the next video.